Welcome everyone. Today we're joined by Chris Latham. First of all, Chris, welcome to Spotlight.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, Marty.
Awesome. And so I'm actually going to do a bit of an honor roll call of Chris's career, because Chris has moved from a professional athlete into a professional coach. Rugby is the sport that we're talking about. And I've spent many hours with Chris talking about all things, not just sport, kids as well, but also our professional careers. And I've really enjoyed the energy around how Chris has transitioned from an athlete into the management side of the actual sport. So I'm just going to do a bit of on a roll call, Chris, if you don't mind. I'm just going to walk through it because it's pretty distinguished. So Chris is a Queensland Reds legend, which is actually my home state here in Australia. Also an Australian Wallabies legend as well. I won't run through the stats of all the games and the numbers that Chris has posted as part of those teams, but they're up there with the legend status. And just for the Australian Wallabies, to put it into context for our global viewers, it sits alongside representing Australia at the Olympics and the Australian cricket team and the Wallabies. That's how I sort of box up as an Australian who has grown up on sport. That's the status that we're talking about. And then Chris actually went to the UK. For our UK listeners, went to the Worcestershire Warriors and played there as well. And for our Japanese listeners, Chris also went to Kuden Voltex in Japan, where he finished his professional playing career. And since then, Chris has moved into the management side of business. Sorry, Chris, this roll call is still going. Was the assistant manager of the Samoan rugby team that's gone to a number of World Cups. And also now, to our US viewers, Chris is actually the head coach for the Utah Warriors and actually took up that post the back end of last year. So again, Chris, thanks for joining us. I would love for you to actually share, because you're back in Australia now, and we're going to talk a bit about the pandemic here, because it definitely has impacted you and what you're doing with the club in the US. But I'd love for you just to give the viewers a quick sort of summary of yourself and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so obviously after playing rugby, my coaching career started pretty soon after, which funny enough, I didn't really want to get into coaching. It wasn't something that I thought playing that I'd move straight into, but an opportunity, obviously whilst I was playing in Japan, came up for me to coach in Japan. So I ended up moving over and coaching with another team in Docomo in that top league competition. And I ended up staying there. What I thought was only going to be a 6-month stint, I ended up staying for 6 years. So, you know, that 6-month contract ended up being 6 years. So, which was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Something that I found, having that language barrier and having the lack of management, I guess, profile that came as a player, it really challenged me into ways of communicating, but not only communicating, but becoming, getting my own identity on how I would manage teams and how I'd run teams. So for me, that style of start in Japan was crucial to where I guess my journey to where I am now as a head coach. So yeah, again, after leaving Docomo in Japan, I went into coaching the Samoan team. And again, the cultural differences there, the cultural, I guess, difficulty, I wouldn't call them difficulties, but the differences in how things are managed and how people are motivated.
Yes.
Certainly then pushed the barriers for me into looking at ways of how I looked at myself and how I spoke and how I communicated and how I came across to an audience. So again, it was a huge learning. It was a huge shift in what I thought I was capable of. It definitely put me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I was certainly in an environment that I was very intimidated in. But again, it brought the best out of me and it brought me to another level. Again, which moving now as a head coach for the Utah Warriors, again, rugby's so unique where it's got a vast, I guess, a vast overall vast nationalities involved in rugby. You know, again, it's hugely evolved around being very personal with people, getting to know what motivates them. Because again, when you're looking at a group of 40 to 45 athletes that are almost to an individually motivated differently, to try and get them in line and get them working towards a common goal is, comes with its challenges. So I guess all those past experiences that I've had have led to this. And then again, you throw in now a pandemic across, and now having moved my family halfway across the world, or to the other side of the world, to America to live, and then the pandemic hit, and then obviously we all moved back again, and having to deal with all this remotely, certainly if the challenges weren't already there, this has certainly thrown in even more challenges. So again, when you've got Zoom, you've got the technology of Google and everything else that comes with it, it does make it slightly easier. But for me, when you're working remotely, it doesn't have that personal touch. It doesn't have that face-to-face, feel about it. So again, these are obviously, like everyone, you're dealing with challenging times, but times again where you put yourself in an uncomfortable position. You put yourself in a position that you don't feel as though you're doing the best you possibly can, and it makes that drive and that hunger to improve even more. So again, it's an environment for growth, and you've just got to see it that way.
So you touch on the pandemic, because our technology at stratapp is about aligning the plan and then seamlessly layering it so everyone's clear what's expected of them. I'd just love to focus on that for a second, because the pandemic did shift. It shifted globally, everyone's world upside down, absolutely. And it impacted you, as you said. You brought the family back, and now you're doing everything from Brisbane, Australia. Right? Just talk a bit about the clarity of the plan. How important is it to actually deliver a super clear plan that everyone can understand and follow in their own way? Given that you're 14,000 miles away trying to manage a business, I'd love to hear that from your perspective.
Yeah, I think having a clear plan that everyone understands is probably half of the picture of being successful. And the other half is obviously getting everyone on board and motivated and invested in that plan is the other half. So for me, it's making sure that, yes, the people that are driving the plan, that are running the plan, and are part of the business that are involved in making sure that plan keeps evolving is, first of all, you've got to have that clear. You've got to have a clear vision, a clear goal. And for me, it's about revisiting it every week. We've got to keep making sure that we're staying true to our vision, staying true to our goals, and staying true to ourselves. I spoke about it before, about not having that face-to-face personal touch. Again, having regular meetings and making sure that we're on track and everyone's staying on plan is paramount to making sure that whilst we're still away and we're still remote, when we come back into, whenever the world starts to come in back into line and we all start to work together again and we can get back to doing what we love, we want to make sure that that's a very seamless transition. And again, nothing's ever going to beat, I don't think nothing will ever beat being face to face with someone and having that personal contact. But whilst we're here, I think, obviously the Zoom and having all those type of things available to us keeps us on track. But again, like you said, having that plan that's clear, everyone understands, and everyone has that direct direction, and there's no real variance off that direction. I mean, again, every plan, I guess, needs to be pushed. Every plan needs to be questioned. And I think that's the only way as a company, or for me anyway, from a sporting organisation, you can evolve. But there's got to be time and place. There's got to be barriers. There's got to be understanding that at the end of the day, you know, we have to move in a direction. We have to go somewhere. We can't just sit level, and we just can't sit at idle. We still need to be moving forward. But I think there also needs to be time where you give, you know, your leaders and you give the people that are working for you that opportunity to question or to try and challenge that direction. Because without that challenge and without that push for change, or push to go further or climb higher, you know, you don't have that investment or that emotional engagement with your employees. So again, you know, that's something that at the moment we're really working hard on, is pushing ourselves into uncomfortable conversations that, you know, most people don't like. They don't like to be questioned. They don't like to be questioned on why, or you know, if we were to move in this direction, are we going in a better direction, or are we, you know, hurting ourselves? But if we are going to move in a better direction, then why can't we push those barriers? And you know, that's where we are at the moment.
I love that. I was actually reading an article the other day that starts to talk about really what the challenges are of the pandemic, not the fact that our people are just going to be remote and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
The reality is it's not. Right. And so we should be giving the platform, we should be giving the avenues for people to collaborate differently and ask the right questions that they feel that they need to ask, without the recrimination of, no, that's not the direction that we want to take. Right. And
yeah, exactly.
Open discussion and platform is really important.
And that's the beauty of having a background in professional sport, because, you know, on a minute scenario in a game, you are put in uncomfortable positions. You are put in scenarios that, you know, you don't get a chance to, you know, to say, oh no, I don't want that, or I don't like this. It's just, you need to react, you need to deal with it. And again, I don't think it's any different in business. If you get comfortable in being uncomfortable, if you get comfortable with being questioned on a daily basis, then, you know, all of a sudden you'll see that, you know, this is all right. Actually, I'm fine. I'm not being interrogated. I'm actually being pushed to be better, and to be better is what we all want to be.
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely, all on board. All on board. I'm going to talk about, because you talked about 50% of the plan and how important it is to have a clear plan, engagement, and then you spent to the other 50% of people being on board, being able to question. I love the whole framework and the model. Let's talk about team dynamics, because you've been incredibly successful teams, and you've actually now working in two sides of the fence. Yes, you are a professional head coach, but you're also working with administration as well, right? When you think about it, it's probably one of the most complex roles in the world, as a leadership role. From a team dynamics perspective, what are some of the things that you've seen that have been incredibly successful?
Yeah, again, I think for me, it's having people invested in that program, not only emotionally, but personally invested. You've got to make them feel that what they're investing in has a part of them involved in it. Mm-hmm. So again, when it comes to planning, when it comes to having an idea, or when it comes to having a direction, you know, you need the people that are going to actually be executing that plan. You need them to feel as though they have a part of their DNA invested in it. Yeah. Once you have them emotionally involved in it, then you know you've got them. You know that they're going to give you 100%. You know they're going to lay down and die for that program. And, you know, when it comes to sport, you know, I always give the analogy that when you're 5 meters off your line and you don't want the opposition to score, you know, you have to put your body on the line. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to know that whether you're 50 meters out for your line, well, I can give them that meter, or I can give them that centimeter. But when you're 5 meters out, you don't want to give an inch. You don't want to give a millimeter. You want to put your body on the line. And it's those times that it's subconscious feeling. It's not something you think about. It's just, you know, that if you've got players invested in you at that second, at that time, then they will put their body on the line for you. And that's when games are won or lost. Yeah. So for me, it's just making sure that I have that. If I have that emotional investment, then I know that I'm on the right track. And if I don't, then it's just basically finding ways of how to emotionally involve them, how to get them connected to the direction that we want, how to get them to question, but not question in a sense where they're just coming up with willy-nilly things. It's making them question in a direction that I want them to head, in a direction that I feel as if I could get that individual to walk this line or walk this avenue. Then I know I'm going to get the best out of them, and I'm going to see growth that I want. And as I talk, these are things that I never thought that I would ever talk about. These are things that I never thought were really relevant, but the more I talk about it and the more that I do it, the more I actually see that was me as a player, and the good leaders and the good coaches that I had, they were able to bring that out of me. And that's what made me who I was and how I was as a player. So I guess that's what I love about being a head coach and being a coach, is having that ability to guide people in a direction that not only I feel will be beneficial for them, but they actually believe themselves that if they follow this direction, or they question that direction, question me into why they want me to go there, and we find a common ground and a common corridor for us all to walk, then it's amazing transition, and it's something that I really love doing.
But let's talk. You touched on leadership. Share with that, because you've not only the leaders that you've been in teams with or organisations with, but think about some of the great players and organisations you've played against, because you've come up against the best of the best in the history of the game. What are some of the best leaders that you've seen, and what was the trait that what are one or two of the traits that really stood out for you while you walked off that field and said, wow?
I guess there's been a lot and so diverse. I don't think there's one key thing, or there's a couple or a handful of things. I mean, there's been so many different characteristics of people that I've actually been drawn back by. I mean, if you look at a guy like John Eales, a captain of Australia Wallabies, captain of obviously the Queensland Reds, and a guy that I've got immense respect for. But he was a guy that, he'd just walk in a room and he'd have a presence. He didn't need to say anything. He didn't need to do anything. He just had a presence and awe that I don't know, even still today, I don't know what it is. But he just had a presence about him that, immediately before he even spoke, it's like, yeah, I'll take my shirt off and I'll put it over that puddle so you don't get wet, kind of awe about him. And then obviously when he spoke, he spoke very clearly. It was always back to the plan. It was always positive. It was always very reassuring that if we do this, we will be successful. Just jump on board and let's go. And so that was always rung through to me. I mean, you look at a guy like George Gregan, he just had a look. It was just, he's well known for the George Gregan look. If you did something stupid, if you did something off plan, it was just a look and you knew. And it was like, yep, sorry, mate. And instantly you're back on plan. But then you had some of the great All Black leaders where, you had a guy like Frank Bunce or Zinzan Brook or guys like that where, they'd go by action. They wouldn't say much at all. They'd just lead. It'd be like, let's go, boys, get behind me and follow me and I'll show you exactly where we're going and what we're doing.
Very much an All Blacks trait.
So again, it's just so diverse on the amount of leaders and people that I've actually been struck by. I mean, even again, I remember this like it was yesterday. I ran out onto the field. We're playing a test match in Johannesburg against the Springboks. and I was running out to go and warm up, and I normally go out very, very early to start my kicking routine, and
Yes. Yeah.
And it gives me chills as I speak about it, because I remember Nelson Mandela was on the sideline,
Right.
and he had his entourage around him.
Yeah.
But they were positioned in a sense that were more positioned for the crowd, but they weren't positioned for anyone coming out the tunnel. They were positioned for people that could potentially jump the fence from the crowd point of view.
Yeah.
So as I came from the tunnel, I had full view, full access, full everything. And he just turned and looked at me, and I was just like, cool. And I froze.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if to say hello. I didn't know if I was meant to just keep running.
Yeah.
I just had no idea. And he came over and just said hello.
Yeah.
And, you know, said, oh, hi, Chris, and just started speaking. I was just like, just drawn by how soft and how calm and how, I don't know, how at ease that just, it was like, I don't know, it was just like watching someone speak in slow motion of how peaceful everything was that he had to say. And,
Yes.
and again, you know, he didn't particularly say anything wise or you know, nothing, no epiphany came from it all, but it was just how calm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So again, something for me, which again, for me personally, doesn't come easy, but at the heat of the moment, I try to be calm. That doesn't work very easy with me. So, and especially when you're in the heat of the moment of a rugby game or on a training session and things aren't going well. But I think just that calmness or that ease really strings of a good leader.
Yeah. And so I'm going to actually lead into the next question, which actually touches on this, because I think what you just said about being calm, being focused, and you look at individuals, and you talked about some very high-profile individuals. Their purpose is so clear.
Yeah.
So that's why I see the calmness and there's no commotion, because once you know what your clear purpose is, and we're big fans of Simon Sinek, and he talks a lot about the why. You know, what's your why? Do you actually know what it is? And talks a lot of energy about that. And we've also enabled that inside the technology to have everyone understand not just what's clearly expected of them, but what are they doing that contributes to the outcome. There's some great stories. I love that. So, and I look at your professional career, and I think we can resonate a lot just in our team environments, of every work environment around the world. It's not just in a professional sporting life. I think what you're saying resonates. So let's shift for a second to a professional sporting career to a professional coaching career, right? And let's look at the coaching career. What's been the biggest change or difference and challenge that you've seen that you needed to transition? Because the way I relate to that question in a professional sporting sense is individual contributors who are part of a team who then take up a leadership role. And they're two different things. They're not suited for everybody. All right. So what's that biggest change that you've seen moving from a player to actually a professional coach?
It's actually being true to myself to know that it's okay to be wrong, that I don't have to know everything, has probably helped me the most, to be honest.
Yeah.
Me inside personally. And again, I'll come back to that calmness and again, what you said about the why. You know, obviously, if you don't have that direction, and then you become very panicky, and if you don't have those answers of why to yourself, then obviously you start to become very withdrawn or very within yourself, and that becomes very evident to people when you're trying to obviously manage or give direction. But the biggest thing for me also, and I was always clear on the why, and I was always clear on the direction. But the biggest thing that I was never clear on was I always felt that I had to have every answer. I always felt that because of my background and where I'd come from, I had to know everything. And the minute that I realized that I didn't, and it was okay to be vulnerable, and it was okay to actually say sorry, and it was okay to put my hand up and say, you know what, my bad. Let's now move to where we should be moving for the better, as opposed to, no, this is where I want to go. And this is, the reality is I'm only digging myself a bigger hole to try and save my own ego.
Yes. Yeah.
As opposed to just put my hand up and say, sorry guys, my bad. Yes, we are better off going in this direction. You are right. And you move forward. And I think for me, I've spoken to a lot of people about that scenario, and you get mixed responses, but the majority of people and the majority of successful people tell me that if you can create an environment where it is safe for people to be wrong, it is safe for people to have those discussions, and that's the environment that you want to create, then you've got to show vulnerability as a leader as well.
Yeah.
And once I've become somewhat comfortable with that, things have become a lot easier. So, So learning from, I don't like to call them mistakes or failures. I like to call them, learnings. Now that I've learnt to become vulnerable, now I've learnt to become comfortable with not having every answer, then things have become a lot easier as becoming a leader and becoming that transition from being a player to that person that everyone looks at for answers and looks at for direction.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, hey, mate, thank you very much for spending time with us. I think there was a lot of gold in that discussion around being from a professional player to coach. But more importantly, I think the way you spoke to us today was around how can you connect with the way that the environment that you're in, how can you connect with understanding you and the situation, and then some of the elements of actually how can we also potentially change, and what are those changes required to be able to make a better place for ourselves. So I really enjoyed that conversation. Lastly, just thank you very much for spending time with us today, Chris. I wish you and your family all the best. It's an uncertain world in relation to what you're doing with the Utah Warriors. But I know whatever you're going to do with those guys and what you do next, you're going to absolutely nail it. So thank you very much, mate.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Thanks, Marty.